Hello, my fellow huggers, and welcome to the December Hugs Huddle. And I know it was a real effort to get here today because we're all so busy, and hopefully busy with business as well as with your family events and friends events. Hugs is a movement. It's a movement to spread hugs, hope, understanding, grace, and service. We meet once a month on this third Friday of every month at 12 o'clock, which serves as a catalyst to keep us inspired. We want to invite others into this movement, which is how we can support change. All change starts with how we think about everything, our mindset. So I'm really excited about today. Some thoughts on the HUGS acronym and how it relates to the season that we're celebrating. So I'm going to start with H. Hope is everything because of the miracle of Christmas. The Son of God came to the earth. God sent his son to sacrifice himself so we could have the hope of eternal life through God's son, Jesus. Not understanding. I think during the holidays, we should stop and think before we speak and try to have understanding to what people are going through. Some people, although a happy season, it can be a difficult season. So showing compassion and understanding during this time, I think is important. And John, were you going to share something real quick about grace?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Kim. Grace, to me, grace is getting something we don't deserve. And as Kim mentioned, God has given us so much that we don't deserve, and that's because of his grace. And even through this season, I encourage each of us to extend grace and kindness to those we come in contact with and to express love through kindness and through expressing grace to others.
Thank you, John. That was
My
amazing.
pleasure.
Alyssa, are you there?
I'm
She's
here.
a fearless leader there at the office.
So I'm speaking about service, the S in hugs. As we move into the holiday season, I think service takes on a deeper meaning. In our area, we're surrounded by beauty and opportunity, but there are also individuals and families facing food insecurity, housing challenges, and loneliness, especially during these times of the year. Service is meeting people where they are without judgment, recognizing that small acts of kindness can make a real impact. So during the holidays, service reminds us that compassion is something that we practice, not just something that we talk about. And when we serve others, we strengthen our community and each other in ways that last far beyond the season. During these times, I think we can focus on food drives, again, like our Spirit of Giving, gift giving tree, and just giving back to those that need it, that need a hug.
Thank you so much. So I hope that you all can continue to live out hugs in your daily life as we go through the season of Christmas, Hanukkah, and into the new year. Okay, so moving on without delay, it's really beyond my pleasure to introduce our very special guest, my brother. And I have to admit, he's my much younger brother, but he is the real deal, I guess I would say. And that's coming from his older sister. And, siblings can be hard on one another, but not this one. He's just everything. Mark S. Adams is the Executive Vice President and Chief Capabilities Officer for Systems Planning and Analysis in Alexandria, Virginia. Okay, I got that out. That is a really amazing title. With more than 38 years of experience supporting U.S. government and national security customers, Mark leads the development and integration of advanced capabilities that help organizations make high consequence decisions with confidence. Beyond his executive role, this is who Mark is. Mark is deeply committed to faith-driven service through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA. He's coached baseball for the FCA in Northern Virginia and currently serves the FCA Mid-Atlantic Regional Board of Directors, investing in student athletes, staff, and communities across the region. Attendees will hear how Mark weaves together leadership, innovation, and ministry in both his professional and personal life. And I have to add, if you go to the Smithsonian, there hangs a piece. It's the first camera to take a picture of the dark side of the moon. And my brother, Mark, was part of that project that developed that technology. So I don't know. I just can't brag enough about him, but more than anything, I love his heart. So I'm going to call him up right now, brother Mark, and talk to us.
So yeah, thank you, Kim. Absolutely excited to be here and support today's talk. This isn't a talk to you, it's a talk with you. Because all of us at this time of year really need to reset and understand like what's really important in life. So that is the people that we love. It's also people that need our help and people that need our care and assistance. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about maybe some things about myself that might seem a little personal for first time getting to know me, but I think in order to really talk about the subject I want to talk about, I have to be totally honest about my past and some of the struggles that I've had, but in the process, things that I've learned along the way. And so today, what I want to talk about is what is true success. And the reality is that our world tells us what success is every day when we watch the news or look at the screen and watch, uh, TV shows or movies, and the view of success that we see is very worldly in nature. Um, it's really based on a number of things that are very self-centered and self-focused. Things like how much money do I have, or how much have I collected in assets or resources? How do people view me as a person? Do they look at me as someone that is got all of their everything all together? Or it could be just what's your title? Like Kim said, my title now is quite hard to say. So the harder to say it, that's the better, that's the best, right? I mean, that means you've reached the pinnacle if it takes a half hour to say your title. The reality is that that's really not success, right? It is, there are elements of that where all of us have worked. I mean, I've spent 40 years in the business of working on government systems, and I would like to say that my work has been focused on doing good in helping our country and those who serve have the systems and capabilities that they need to protect us all from, the threats that are out there, whether those be cybersecurity or physical threats to our nation and to our security. Every day when we watch the news, there are all kinds of things that are very disturbing that we see and hear about. The recent active or things that happened in Australia are just heartbreaking, and of course things like that have happened here in our own shores as well. And so the world is a dangerous place. And so, one of the things that I've committed my life to from a work perspective is trying to be a part of the solution, not the problem. Um, and so I'll give you a little bit of my history, and then we'll kind of go from there. Um, I'm going to change hugs today, and don't worry, Kim. I'm not trying to change it permanently. I just when I put together my talk, I wanted to sort of structure it around your hugs theme. So I'm going to put it in the chat. But today we're going to look at being humble, uplifting, generous, and servants, and that's my version of hugs that we're going to talk about today. Um, I, Kim and I grew up in a home that focused on, hard work is the way you not get ahead. It's the way you survive. And that hard work for me was interpreted in a number of different ways. Obviously, in school, in the schooling that I did as in my high school, in my elementary school, I was always a good student. I excelled for some reason at math, and science was something that I really loved, and was very inspired by just the idea of you know things like physics and how it worked, and it was always very exploratory in my brain. So that turned out to be a benefit to me. The other area that I spent most of my time was playing sports. Sports was just everything I did. I was a three sport athlete, played football, basketball, baseball. I used to joke that I would take my spikes off, go into my sneakers, and then take my sneakers off and go in back to spikes. And so it just kind of just rotated that for pretty much my whole life, just going from season to season. But what I really want to just bring to light is this idea that our passions um, our passions sometimes can control us and keep us from actually being successful. So, what I was talking about earlier is I've struggled in my life with what we call workaholism. Uh, it's it's one of these things where as I was a young man trying to raise a family and trying to, make ends meet in a very expensive area of the world to live. I moved to Northern Virginia coming out of college. We moved to Baltimore the week after I graduated from college in Geneva College in Pittsburgh. And my wife Lisa and I got married the week after. We went on a honeymoon, and then we got in a car and we drove to Baltimore, and that was it. No returning home, no living in the basement. No, we got in a car, two cars, beat up cars that could barely make it, and we drove to Baltimore and we got an apartment, and we've been here ever since, in this general vicinity. So this is home now. We live in Leesburg, Virginia now. But the reality is that as a young man trying to make a living for my family, one of the things that I was very lucky to have was I loved what I did. I absolutely love to go into work every day and to be creative and to, as an engineer, to write software or build systems or help our military build the next thing that they need to do sonar detection or send a spacecraft to the moon. All of those things are a heck of a lot of fun to do. But they also are so much of a heck of a lot of fun to do that you can sometimes lose yourself in your work and forget all of the things that are super important in life around you. And so what really wanted to share with you all today is I had an experience that changed my life significantly, and I don't really share this with a lot of people. And Kim may or may not even know this story, but it was a game changer for me. So I had a 20-year career at Northrop Grumman. Many of you may or may not know who Northrop Grumman is, but if you recently the B-2 bomber, for instance, that went to Iran is a Northrop Grumman product. Northrop Grumman, when I was there, I helped Northrop Grumman build a system in New York City that helped fire, police, and 911 centers have communications when emergencies occur. This was after 9/11, when there were so many failures of communications that we actually totally upgraded their entire environment for communication, saving lives and making things better in the city. And that system operated all the way up till about 5 years ago, when it was transitioned to an even more modern system. So I'm very, very proud of that. But during that period of time, I did a lot of traveling. And every other week I was getting on a train and going to New York. And then after that, we decided, hey, we want to do this for London. So I started going to the UK, and I was making trips. My kids were, they weren't super young, but they were, 10, 11, 12, 13, in that area between the two of them. But I was doing tons of travel. And I put a lot of effort into everything that I did with work. And I was involved in church. I was on the board, elder board for our church, and my wife played music every Sunday. She's a musician, so we were super active. But all during that time, I was working very hard and very long, traveling, 1.5 million miles in United right now is kind of where I stand. So as you can imagine, I've been all over the world. After 20 years at Northrop Grumman, my time at Northrop Grumman was coming to a close because there was a reorganization. And I found myself one day realizing walking out of the building by myself with no pomp and circumstance, just a box full of, you know, cards and a few statue or a few things that I had, you know, for shelf on my shelves in this office at Northrop. And I walked out of that office without a friend, without, you know, without a pat in the back, without anything, because most of the people that I had been working with over the years had already migrated because of reorganizations to some other, either some other part of Northrop Grumman or had actually left. And what I realized that day that changed my life was that organizations don't care about you, right? It's, you know, it doesn't matter which company, which organization. It's not the organization that cares. It's the people that matter, and it's the people that you work with that you keep connectivity with. It's the people that you know serve with in the hugs area. Whatever you all are doing together, it's those people that are going to. It's those relationships and the things that you do that are above and beyond what we do for work that really make things special. It's so what I would say at that point in my life, what I realized most was I wasn't going to do that again. I wasn't going to walk out of another building with the idea that the connectivity to the people and to the things that I had done during the time I was there what was going to purely be something that I carried out in a box. And so what ended up happening was that day was the beginning of a new era for me. And one of the very first things that happened was I was given an opportunity to meet regional manager for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, who was running what was called FCA baseball here in Northern Virginia. Now, my son played baseball all the way through college or high school, and I helped coach some of his teams, some of his travel teams, things like that. And I'd always seen that there was these Fellowship Christian Athlete teams, but I had never knew much about it. I just kind of knew they existed. So I met this individual, Todd Berger, and we started talking about how he was needing some coaches to coach some of his teams. And he said that my pastor, who he knew, had told him that I was a coach for my son and that he would really like me to consider coaching for FCA. And that turned into 5 years of coaching, starting with some kids at the age of 12, they moving them up and actually graduating them from high school, and having about 8 of those guys that I coached actually go into play college baseball, which was an awesome experience for me. But the most important thing for me wasn't the fact that they went to play college baseball. It was the fact that some of those students have come back to me since then and told me what an impact, my ability to take the time to coach them and to help them navigate the very difficult days that it is to be a high school athlete these days. And so one of those students, which is really special to me, said to me, "Hey, coach, I want to go to Geneva College." And I'm like, how do you even know about Geneva College? Like, who knows? It's a school of about a couple thousand students. It's a very small Christian school in Pittsburgh. And he says, "Yeah, I want to go to Geneva. I've decided I want to go there. Do you have any contacts there?" Well, it turns out I actually knew the coach of Geneva's baseball team because I actually played with him. And so I called up Mr. Sumner, who is the coach, and I said, "Hey, I've got a kid here. He's a great kid. He's not a superstar, but he's a solid baseball player. I think you should talk to him." So he talked to my player, ended up going to Geneva, and just this year he won the conference. He got all conference in their Division III league, and that was just amazing to see. And then he came back home, and we had dinner, and he was telling me about he graduated in three years instead of 4, And so he said, guess what, coach? I'm going to go to Hopkins. Well, that's where I got my master's degree. I'm like, dude, like, what's going on here? And he decided to go to Hopkins, and he said he still wanted to play baseball. He had 1 year of eligibility. So he walked on to Hopkins and made the team, and he's playing for Hopkins right now. So it's pretty cool stuff. But it's those types of relationships where you're making a difference outside of sort of your day to day, where you're starting to think about what is true success in life, right? Is it? I mean, I've had lots of success in my business, but I've also had some, I've had some moments of challenge, just like everybody else. Those moments of challenge are the times where we learn, where we get where we get the strength to go on and do the next thing and to accomplish things. There's an example out of Florida. Many of you all know probably a guy named. I'm sorry, I got to find my notes here. So there's a guy named Tim Tebow that many of you know out of Florida. He won the Heisman Trophy. He was a superstar. They won the national championship, and he was he was a first round pick by the Denver Broncos. I believe it was in 2007, 2008 draft, and he was or 2010 draft, but he was essentially went to the NFL. And the thing he was most known for in the NFL was the fact that he would kneel and pray before and during games. And there was this big, should he do that? Shouldn't he do that? Why does he do that? Kind of thing. And the reality is that his NFL career was quite frankly, it was pretty much a disaster, right? I mean, he had a few moments of success at Denver, but if many of you remember, he was replaced by a guy named Peyton Manning in Denver, which is a tough sell. Then he became, essentially moved all over. He went to the Jets, which is a terrible place to go because it's just a hard place to play in New York. And then he, wandered off to a couple of other places. And then finally, he was kind of done with his NFL career. He went and tried to play baseball. I appreciate that. He went and played in the minors, but in the grand scheme of things, all of that was his sports career. But what he did was something that I don't think many of us would have the character to do. Is he took all of those things that he was challenged with in the NFL, and all of the failure that he had, but he used his fame to build an organization that is a foundation called the Tim Tebow Foundation, where he has built a mission to people with, we'll just say, people that have needs in their darkest hour. So he works with orphans and children. They provide medical needs to people that have medical issues that they can't deal with. He's helps in helping fight human trafficking and exploitation. And he has had that foundation and spin-offs of that foundation ever since 2010. Now, just think about 2010 was when he was drafted. He was starting that foundation then, and he's been managing it all through all these other years of being, traded to different schools, to trying to go play baseball and failing at that. And the reality is all during that time, God was structuring his life such that he wasn't to be, a Hall of Fame NFL player. But what he was to be was Tim Tebow, who all of us know. And we can go online and we can find out about the Tim Tebow Foundation, and we can see all of the things that Tim hasn't done for people. And back to my statement earlier of humble, uplifting, generous, and servant. If you were to describe Tim Tebow, it really starts with humility, because Tim, no matter what even at the peak of his success, he would kneel and be thankful for the skills, the things that God had given him. And he was not self-promoting in any way, shape, or form. He was uplifting because his focus was to uplift people. well, basically uplifted his Christian faith, and within the context of that, he committed that Christian faith to doing things for people and using that for good. And then he's generous because even amidst being an NFL player and being transferred and moved and all kinds of things, he was generous with his time and his money enough to start this foundation and continue that to this day. And he's a servant because he, again, took his time to commit to that. So what am I trying to say? Well, like I said, this is more of a conversation than a speech about, right? I struggle with these concepts every day. In my life, I want to be successful. There is nobody on the planet that wants to work harder, than I do in order to be successful. And I will, do that to the best of my ability. But sometimes I have to step back and say what's really important. What is what am I actually accomplishing, today, the next 30 days, the next 6 months, what's actually important. And as you know, our lives have um, different stages. My wife and I now, our kids are out of the house, obviously older. We have two granddaughters who we get to see on occasion, and we have to really think with wherever we're at in life, what's important. What is success? Yes, success is paying the bills, making the dollars that you need to make, being successful at what you do. In your case, many of your cases, I would imagine it's real estate, or something around real estate. And I can't tell you how important real estate agents are. I've had some good ones and I've had some bad ones. So I really root for those who are good real estate agents that really serve their constituents and their customers, because I know how important that is. But if you think about it, there's a lot of other time in the day. There's a lot of other challenges that we have and other people that we're around have. And so what everybody's answer to the question, what's important, is different. To me, I have a passion for athletes. So my commitment and the time that I spend in working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes is a perfect scenario for me because it's a passion of mine. I believe that athletes are challenged in the modern day because of just the way athletics works, and the expectations that not only their coaches have, but their parents and those who the recruiters, you name it. I mean, kids really, really have a lot on their plate when they're trying to be elite athletes. And even kids that aren't trying to be elite athletes just want to play a sport. There's just a lot of challenges. But those challenges also help them develop as individuals. And so teaching them how to use the challenges that come within athletics to advance themselves in all aspects of their life is really what I try to do when I work with athletes. So I'll wrap it up with just one sort of final story. Um, Having respect for people and being able to identify people that you care about in a environment where maybe it's not sort of standard practice. I recently, before I got my present job, was working at a different company, and in that role, I had quite a few people that worked for me. It was over 180 people at one point, and the one thing that I was most proud about, that I felt like God really kind of hit me over the head with, when we did. I don't know if you guys do internal employee surveys. Most companies do some kind of survey, but they surveyed, and then you get a report. You get your report, your direct reports and their reports. You get a number. And one of the things that I always try to pride myself in, and this wasn't always true of me because I'm such a type A, at times I can be a little bit abrasive. and just kind of like not on purpose, but just kind of like trying to get things done. You can forget that people are there. And but when I got a survey back, there was a question. It says my manager cares about me, and I had like 100%. And I was like, okay, that's good, right? That means that no matter what, all the challenges that we had in business and all of the things that I was doing, the people around me felt like, even though they worked for me, that they had a friend. And I think that's the kind of, I just think that's something that we, again, that's a good example. I'm sure there are bad ones where there's people out there that are like, man, I'll never work with him again. He's just a pain in the butt. But it was that survey where it was kind of like, yeah, that's really what I want, right? That I had other bad numbers, there were numbers, but that one was one where it said to me, hey, I know that no matter what, whether I got the raise I wanted or whether I got the promotion I did or didn't want, I know that this person who is my boss cares about me as a person. And so I just think that those are the kinds of moments in our life where we can look back and say, okay, that's true success. But we're going to fail tomorrow because that's just, we're human and we will. But finding those moments and then also using those moments as something to motivate us for the next challenge or the next hill we're going to take. So with that, that's it, Kim.
With that, you are so special. Do you guys know that I love this man? My little brother. So Mark, real success is making a difference in people's lives, right? And you have definitely always been, with everything that you have, and have succeeded, he always visits his parents. He always picks up the phone when his sister calls him. So I really appreciate you as a man, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to share with us. I think it was very impactful, especially looking into 2026. So I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules. I really appreciate you being huggers. And okay, I like this. What is the new hugs? Humility,
uplifting, generous.
Yeah. Humble, uplifting, generous, and servant.
All right, there we go. We got another hug. Give yourself a hug before leaving. Take your right to your left to your right, and squeeze. Thank you guys for coming today, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. I'll see you in January for another great year of hugs.